What's up, fellow podcaster? Welcome back. And in today's podcast interview breakdown, I'll be reacting to the Hot Ones interview with Kevin Bacon. Here we go.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? For First We Feast, I'm Sean Evans, and you're watching Hot Ones. It's the show with hot questions and even hotter wings. And today we're joined by Kevin Bacon. He's a Gold Globe award-winning actor with countless timeless titles over the course of his 40-plus year-long Hollywood career, including Apollo 13, A Few Good Men, Footloose, Mystic River, and many more. These days, though, you can catch him starring in the acclaimed crime drama City on a Hill, which begins its third season on Showtime Sunday, July 10th. Kevin Bacon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How are you around hot sauce? I know that you like to hit your morning mango with a little bit of chili powder.
Yeah, I like hot sauce.
So right off the bat, first off, if you haven't watched this show, Hot Ones, it is one of the best interview shows that is on YouTube. It's super simple, and the host, Sean Evans, is a phenomenal interviewer, asks phenomenal questions, which you're about to see. You can already tell it's well prepared. That little, whether it was done in the pre-interview or they were doing it, I could just see one of the producers asking Kevin Bacon's assistant or Kevin Bacon's publicist if he does any type of spice or anything like that, but just a little sprinkle, no pun intended, of chili powder onto his mango. Like, that is just the fine detail that they go to for this interview, which when it comes to the art of interviewing, I can just fully appreciate. Even so, and not to keep rambling, but the title is Kevin Bacon Needs 6 Degrees of Separation from Spicy Wings. There was a thing online. There was a whole article about how you can connect almost every actor in Hollywood to Kevin Bacon. So they're even going that far as detail. I nerd out on this stuff.
Sauce? I don't know. There's this thing what they say if you use it too much, then your taste buds get burned out, and then you need to use more. And it's a gateway drug or something. I don't know. But I like it.
So in the gritty Boston-based crime drama City on a Hill, you play the often seedy, always swaggering FBI agent Jackie Rohr. And I've heard you describe the show as being like Shakespeare with a lot of fucks. Can you unpackage that? I love it as a tagline.
Well,
once again, right off the rip, his first question, it's like a very well worded question. And it's kind of funny because he drops the F-bomb because Kevin Bacon is about to use it. But once again, just pay attention to the way these questions are crafted. See, I have ADHD and I'm a little dyslexic. And for me to do a planned, rehearsed, or a written question like that, I know for a fact I would stumble it. And I don't know how many times Sean does it, or he's been doing it a while, if he has to do retakes where they can fix it in post. But just every single question is just so clean and so precise. That's why if you are doing a podcast interview show, or when you do your podcast interviews, watch this show and just pay attention to the questions, write them out, and just see how it's worded and how it correlates with everything that with everyone who they're interviewing.
Well, when I first read the script, what I really found interesting about the character was he's obviously a man of the street. At the same time, he's like incredibly well-read and incredibly verbose. Sometimes I do parts where I like to kind of lean into saying a lot with a very little. And then every once in a while, something comes along where the guy can't shut the fuck up. And it's just really fun to just kind of lean into that. And they always write me good stuff to say.
I would ask you once again, I talk about this in every podcast interview breakdown that I do, is just the power of why. You could even see on his face, like, part of listening when you're doing interviews like this, it is to listen to what they say, but to also read body language. He just had that, the way the camera angle is set up, he's just like smirking, and you can just tell that there's just a lot there and he's really passionate about. So it's just like, where does that passion come from? And why are you so passionate about it? Or even, do you prefer saying very little, or do you like going a little bit longer with the writers? And do you guys, is it like a first draft thing? Like, hey, we want you to say it like this. And he's like, well, I want to say it like that. And it's like, how much creative control do you have to go back to the writers, or if they'll let you just kind of ad-lib it a little bit.
So I want to stay on the topic of television because it marks a distinct shift for you, saying in a 2017 interview with The Guardian, "Before, my managers knew never to mention a TV series because they knew how furious that would make me." What do you see as the forces at play that have driven so many actors away from film and towards television over the last decade or so?
Once again, awesome question. Just because when I used to, for those of you who don't know, I was in broadcast news for 10 years and I covered general assignment news. I did weather, but I did it all to get to Los Angeles, and I worked for Fox in their entertainment division for a while, interviewing celebrities on the red carpet and doing press junkets just like this one. And at that time, it was about 5 years ago, TV writing was just then starting to kind of come around. And with actors, I remember them saying a lot of them didn't want to do TV because they didn't want to take away from film. So it's interesting for it to come full circle. Now they have producers and everything helping write these questions, but this is definitely something I would have addressed since he is a very well-known actor. So it'd be really interesting to see the whole transition from film to TV.
Well, I think what happened was writers on films, and a lot of people aren't really aware of this, are strangely kind of the low men on the totem pole, or low people on the totem pole. On a film set, on a movie set, once the writer has delivered the script, the director and the actors and the producers just kind of traditionally have pushed them aside and say, well, now this is our movie and we're going to make it ours. You know, even in the editing process, scenes that were incredibly important to a writer get lifted and taken out. And at one point, I think they all went, you know what? Fuck that. You know, I'm gonna go where I can be the showrunner. So when the great writers started to see that that was an opportunity, they went to television, and then that sort of golden age of Sopranos and 6 Feet Under and The Wire and all these TV shows that I was sitting home and watching and just looking at and going, shit, I want to do that.
And then it's interesting to me.
It's interesting because he talks about how the writers, it almost sounded like they didn't have very much creative control, or as he put it, the low person on the totem pole. And I would just ask him, what about for actors? What has happened with actors where they're on the lower part of the totem pole and now they've kind of gotten a little bit more creative control or creative freedom, whether that's working with networks or it's creating their own content? How have they gone from the low man to the high man, or just regained their control as an actor?
That in the beginning of your career, you know, box office was everything, and then that gives way to Blockbuster and rentals, which gives way to DVDs.
This would be a question for Sean himself. He's on my interview list. So Kevin or Sean, if you would like to do an interview, I'm going to put my information right here. But I'm actually surprised First We Feast hasn't done a full process on how they do the wings and how the whole process for the show, from setup, breakdown, the sets, the cameras, the crew, the chicken wings, depending on where they travel to, if they're in LA, do they go to a Ralph's or do they find a chicken wing place? If they're in New York, where do they go? And he just kind of said that they toss the chicken wings in a bowl. So, well, how much sauce is being put in there? I'm sure obviously a decent amount for the actual show, or not too much where the show can't go on, but it would just be interesting to see from start to finish. So if anyone from Hot Ones is watching this, I think that would be a great behind the scenes video. And if you need somebody to do the whole asking questions thing, if Sean's not available, I'm just saying, I'm here. God, he's such a good, God, that question was just so specific with examples. Like I said, I know I would have stumbled through that or just figured out a way to loop that in there, but just, God, the way it's worded and his delivery is just so good. Just, man.
Well, That's a really interesting question.
By the way, and he's done this twice now. I can't remember what he said on the other question. I think he said, that's an interesting point, is what he said. And then he just said now, oh man, that's a good question. To me personally, and to anybody else who is an interviewer, that I don't know about you guys, but that is one of the biggest compliments somebody can give you. It's like, oh man, that's a really good question, or something, just something that you said or worded, or is it a detail, or how specific you were, or just something you said. It could be the tone. And for them to say that, or to give you that kind of look like, huh, like to make them think, and then have them vocalize that to you to me, in my opinion, is the greatest compliment as a interviewer.
When I did the movie Diner, I learned a great lesson from Barry Levinson. Being young and also really coming from the stage, I tended to be kind of bigger, and tended to want to put it out into the back row, whatever it was that I was feeling. And he was like, don't play it so much. You can just, less than, it's, and so I did less, and he would have me do less again. And that was a great sort of lesson to me. Also, you can't necessarily judge a part based on the amount of lines that you have. If you listen to people and you have a good sense of who your guy is, you can make an impact. You can make your presence known without just a bunch of this.
And to follow up with that one, I would have been like, and when you go into any TV show or movie role, is that your goal is to leave an impact on the audience members specifically, or is it maybe a family member, or what? Do you have different impacts for different movies, and what is it? Has it changed over the years? For somebody who's that seasoned as an actor, just at his level, I would love to know.
What to you?
There's a few things to unpack there. The way he's, once again, just his body language and just the way he's talking, he is so humble. Kevin Bacon is a seasoned veteran, A-list celebrity who has been in so many cult classics, which, by the way, is probably one of my favorite questions. It's like, what is it like to be recognized in so many cult classic movies? I feel like in the career, or just in an actor's career, you may be lucky to get one, but you're a part of several. And it's just like, these are huge hits that are so nostalgic to me. And it's just like, man, like, how does that feel? And then just how, with all the money and the fame and everything, because you are Kevin Bacon, how do you stay so humble? Like, just the way we're talking, just the tone, was it always like that? Did you ever have ego kind of coming up? Because that's what Hollywood is kind of stereotyped with. So it's like, how do you stay humble? He talked about almost dying in there. So it's like, before you know you're going to be doing a stunt like that, where the worst could happen, do you take out a life insurance policy? And also, you saw that scene with like Tom Hanks and Bill Paxton. It's like, you had the chance to work with somebody who has now passed. Is there anything from that movie that you guys were in that you remember that is like your fondest memory with Bill Paxton? Or maybe there was something you said off camera, like, what is your, I guess, like, most endearing memory with Bill Paxton? That's a whole different road you could go down as well.
So besides movies, I know that music is a major passion of yours. Starting a band with your brother Michael 25 years ago, the Bacon Brothers, and releasing close to a dozen studio albums in the time since. As someone with a foot in both worlds, is there a movie, a project of yours that you think has the best or most underrated original soundtrack?
Of mine. Probably, it's been a while since I've gone back and listened to it, but probably Telling Lies in America. And of course, I think of that because I wrote a couple songs for it, but that's not really the reason I wrote it. I wrote a song called Medium Rare that they actually sing in the movie, and it was cool to try to write in a specific kind of style of an era and stuff like that. You know what else has probably, I'm guessing, although I don't honestly go back and look at the movies, but I'm guessing that it has a good soundtrack would be She's Having a Baby. because John Hughes was a huge, people forget he was a huge music fan. He was also really super influential in things that were gonna, be on the radio, and, really, I'm sure there's a lot of cool music in that. Tissue time.
Tissue time. Tissue time. Are you?
So I didn't know that Kevin Bacon had a band, and he also in Apollo 13 worked. Oh God, I have one chance. I think it's Gary Sinise, but he's got the Lieutenant Dan band. So I wonder, is like, who's better, the Bacon band, his band, or the Lieutenant Dan band? And would they ever go on tour together? I don't know. I could figure out a whole list of questions regarding that aspect of it, or if you wanted to go down. If you wanted to go down that rabbit hole.
Just in anticipation, my nose started to run, yeah.
This is the hollow gi here.
Okay.
In the 7 spot. Did you have a biggest customer pet peeve when you were going by Wooner and waiting tables at the Aussie Cafe?
My biggest customer pet peeve. Man, your research is deep, bro.
See, that God, I knew they were going to do it. Once again, I nerd out on this stuff. As soon as he said it, I'm telling you, whether they contact people they know beforehand or just whoever is part of their research team, which actually is one of my personal favorite things to do, is to research things about certain people, but just details so small, like where he worked. That's probably like the first job he had in Hollywood. And you could just tell it's that, like that hidden nostalgia for him. And he's just like, your researchers are so good. And whether that's his producer or Sean came up with it, once again, this is what I love about this show. You have to study this show to figure. I wish they'd do a whole research breakdown too. I think I've only heard Sean mention that him and his producer kind of work on the questions, but it would be interesting to figure out, like, when they start diving deep like this, where they got it or where they found it.
Booner, that is. I got some friends that are gonna shit when they hear that you figured that out. My biggest pet peeve would be splitting dishes. It was an interesting restaurant that I worked at. It's on 72nd Street up here, because service was not really the deal. I mean, I was by far the most agreeable person that worked there. The bartenders, the waitresses, it was none of this, what can I get you, sir? No, it was nothing like that. So, it was not, Le Cirque.
I would have asked, do you ever, it's obviously been a while since you've thought about it, but do you ever look back on moments like that when you were just waiting tables and you were a nobody, and just kind of look back to where you started and to where you are now? And how often do you think about that? Is that part of the humbling process as well? And it's like, when you do think about it, what is like the first thing that comes to your mind, or what is the first feeling that comes to your mind? Obviously there's nostalgia. Or is it like all those stories that, if you've ever worked in the service industry, like kind of he's talking about, is there any stories that stick out that just, that are obviously appropriate for the show, but I'm sure he's got plenty. But once again, great question. And if you watch this show as religiously as I do, I think it was Rachel Ray who was on there, who didn't do wings. She literally took small spoonfuls of each hot sauce directly. So props to her on that one. And I would say I have seen less, like, I don't know. I always say guys are wusses, because if you compare the guys and girls on this show who go on this show, I feel like women have a way higher pain tolerance. And like he just said, he's never had a woman tap out.
I know.
It's funny how. I know. Oh, fuck me. It's funny how it just kind of builds,
Yeah, there's a cumulative effect, I think, of like putting all these 10 and layering them on top. But the good news is you're all done with the wings. We've taken a journey through your acting career, and it's clear that you're someone who loves movies ever since you snuck into that dollar theater when you were 12 years old to see Midnight Cowboy. On the topic of the movies that shaped you, what makes Spinal Tap?
Real quick, God, he did it again. Like, where are they getting this information? Like, I almost wish he would have said that and then paused and like gave him a wink or something just to see his reaction.
Perfect film. Oh,
It's got rock and roll. It's got transformational performances from people who don't look or act anything like the characters that they played. It's got humor and then a unexpected touch of pathos. And it goes up to 11.
Great interview. There's just a few things that I would have asked there at the end, and I know their show, they have a limited time as well, so they can't go too into detail, but Kevin Bacon, you know, he's a huge star and he's done everything for movies, TV. He's got his own band, Broadway, all that good stuff. But they didn't talk about the new age media. I don't know if anybody knew this, but Kevin Bacon is on TikTok as well. And it's really interesting to see just like his perspective. So it would be interesting to know like how he got started on TikTok. Did his team put him up to it? Does he enjoy doing it? Does he not enjoy doing it? Does he interact with fans? Like what does he do? So that would be interesting to ask. Also, I have heard rumors that anytime he has to go to somebody's wedding, is it true that he slips the DJ a 20 to not play Footloose? Right. So I don't know if that's true. And I'm always curious, because when I used to live in Los Angeles, people used to see him running all the time. So I'd be curious to know is how does one approach Kevin Bacon and what's the way not to approach you? But that's all I got for you for this podcast interview breakdown. I hope you enjoyed it.
That was amazing. I honestly don't know where you get these questions from, but they are, well, I know because I've seen the show that they are very surprising and incredibly well researched.
oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to, it's not just the wings, it's also nice to have have some shit to talk about that's not, the usual.
I can't believe it's weird. I hope I can line this up in post, but this is what I've been talking about the entire interview. The whole time I've been doing this reaction video is to get a compliment like that is just, like I could feel it. Oh man, that means so much because when these celebrities do these press junkets or when they're promoting their movie or TV show, I'm not kidding. They are asked these same 5 to 10 questions all the time. And this show, they do a complete deep dive and still and he knows it too, because he was just like, oh my God, they have the same sound bites, the same questions from every single outlet, especially on the red carpet, especially in these press junkets. So he's still able to promote his stuff without having to feel like, God, here is another interview. And I have a whole tangent about why these celebrities shouldn't be on these mainstream corporate media outlets, but that's for another day, another time. But this is what I was talking about the entire time of what a compliment to Sean and his research team. I can't believe it. That's awesome. All right, that does it for this podcast interview breakdown with the Hot Ones interview with Kevin Bacon. But before you go, if this is your first time on this channel, my goal is to help podcasters become the authority in their niche with podcast interviews. So if you have a podcast or you're thinking about starting one, this free download is for you. It's a list of my top 25 podcast interview questions that will make you sound like a pro so you can have engaging and entertaining conversations. The link is in the description, and we'll see you next time.